Commander Jack Ellis took a deep breath as the airlock hissed open. This was it, the first official meeting between humanity and the Galactic Confederation. 20 years after discovering the alien signal, 5 years after developing faster-than-light travel, humanity was finally taking its place among the stars. "Remember," Jack said quietly to his team, "follow the protocols exactly as we practiced." Olivia Martinez nodded beside him, the communications officer's fingers nervously adjusting her translator device. Behind them stood 5 other crew members from the Earth Space Force vessel Intrepid *, each chosen for their expertise and steady temperament. The alien greeting party waited in the docking bay. 3 tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms each stood in front, flanked by smaller green creatures with large, dark eyes. All wore what appeared to be ceremonial robes with strange symbols that shifted and changed as they moved. "Welcome to Centauri Prime," said the tallest blue alien in a voice that sounded like water flowing over stones. The translator in Jack's ear worked perfectly. "I am High Counselor Vrax. We have anticipated this meeting for some time." Jack followed the rehearsed greeting, bowing at precisely the angle the briefing materials had specified. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we are honored by your welcome." The tour of the Confederation headquarters went smoothly at first. The humans marveled at the architecture that seemed to defy gravity, the gardens filled with plants from 1,000 worlds, and the great hall where representatives of over 300 species conducted the business of galactic governance. Then came the diplomatic reception. The humans were introduced to various species, each with their own customs and taboos. Jack noticed how the alien delegates watched them carefully, as if studying specimens in a lab. "They seem nervous around us," Olivia whispered when they had a moment alone. "Did you notice how they flinch when we move too quickly?" Jack nodded. "Stay alert. Something feels off." The incident happened during the meal ceremony. One of the servers, a small reptilian creature, stumbled and dropped a tray of ceremonial drinks. The purple liquid splashed onto an important-looking delegate with fur and multiple eyes. The room fell silent. The delegate began to make a high-pitched keening sound. Its fur changed color from brown to bright red. "The Zorthan is having an allergic reaction," Olivia said urgently, her enhanced hearing implants picking up the panicked whispers of the medical staff. "Their ceremonial garment is absorbing the liquid and their skin can't handle it." The alien medical team seemed frozen in confusion. Jack saw the Zorthan delegate's breathing become labored. Without hesitation, Jack grabbed a pitcher of clear liquid from a nearby table. "Olivia, ask if this is water." Olivia quickly confirmed with a startled server. "Tell them I'm helping," Jack said, and before anyone could stop him, he rushed forward and poured the water over the affected area of the Zorthan's fur, diluting the purple drink. The Zorthan's breathing steadied, but the room erupted in chaos. Security personnel surrounded the humans, and Counselor Vrax approached with what Jack interpreted as a shocked expression. "You touched an honored delegate without permission," Vrax said. "And you used improvisation during a formal ceremony." "The delegate was in distress," Jack replied. "Where I come from, we act first when lives are at stake." The humans were politely but firmly escorted back to their quarters. As they walked through the corridor, Olivia leaned close to Jack. "My implants picked up some of their conversation," she whispered. "They're using words like containment and unpredictable. One of them called us a potential threat." Jack frowned. "For helping someone." "I think it was how we helped," Olivia replied. "They seemed shocked by how quickly you assessed the situation and acted without going through channels." Back in their quarters, the team gathered to discuss what happened. "They're afraid of us," Jack realized. "Not because we're dangerous, but because we're unpredictable to them." "What does that mean for the diplomatic mission?" asked one of the team members. Jack looked out the window at the vast cityscape of Centauri Prime, the headquarters of a civilization thousands of years more advanced than Earth. "It means," he said slowly, "that our first impression might have lasting consequences, and not the ones we hoped for. 3 months after the first contact incident, the Grand Galactic Council chamber hummed with tension. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy filled the massive circular room. At the center stood High Chancellor Zix Forn, his purple scales gleaming under the light of 3 artificial suns hanging from the domed ceiling. Esteemed colleagues, Zix Forn's voice boomed across the chamber. Today we address a matter of galactic security. The massive screens surrounding the chamber lit up with images of Earth, cities sprawled across continents, ships sailing on blue oceans, aircraft soaring through clouds, and then rockets climbing into space. The species known as humans, continued Zix Forn, has achieved in merely 3 centuries what took most of our civilization's millennia. The screens showed the history of human technology, from the first steam engines to nuclear power, from early biplanes to space shuttles, from simple radios to quantum computers. 250 years ago, they burned coal for power. Today, they walk among us. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. But it is not just their technological growth that concerns us. The screens shifted to show scenes of human history, wars, sports competitions, mountain climbers scaling impossible peaks, deep-sea divers exploring ocean trenches. They embrace risk. They seek conflict. They deliberately place themselves in danger for what they call adventure. And when faced with threats, they do not retreat. They advance. Meanwhile, in another part of the Confederation capital, Lieutenant Kevin Reeves and Science Officer Samantha Wells were being led through what was supposed to be a comprehensive tour of the alien city. Kevin frowned as they were hurried past yet another restricted area. "That's the 5th place we haven't been allowed to see," he whispered to Samantha. Samantha nodded slightly, her eyes tracking the movements of their guide, a thin, green-skinned alien named Mealox. "Lieutenant Reeves," Mealox chirped, "next we will see the public gardens. Very beautiful, very safe." "What about the Science Academy?" Samantha asked. "It was on our original itinerary." Mealox's inner eyelids fluttered rapidly. "Unavailable today. Special ceremony. Very private." Kevin caught Samantha's eye. They both recognized the lie. Later, while their guide was distracted by a call, Kevin noticed a service door left slightly open. Through it, they glimpsed aliens gathering around viewing screens. "They're watching the council meeting," Samantha whispered after studying the scene for a moment. Her linguistics training helped her interpret some of the alien reactions. Something big is happening. That evening, at a diplomatic dinner, Kevin managed to sit next to Trelek, a friendly alien diplomat they had met during their first week. After several drinks of a sweet, blue liquid, Trelek became talkative. "Your species fascinates me," the alien said, 4 of its 6 eyes blinking independently. "So young, yet so bold." "We're just curious," Kevin replied. "We want to learn from the Confederation." Trelek's mouthparts twitched in what Kevin had learned was their version of a sad smile. "The Council may not give you that chance." "What do you mean?" Kevin asked, trying to sound casual. Trelek leaned closer. "A new law is being drafted. The Humanity Containment Act, they call it. Never before has the Confederation created legislation targeted at a single species." Kevin felt a chill. "Containment? They want to restrict us." "Many fear your potential," Trelek whispered. "You solved in minutes a diplomatic crisis on Selter that we negotiated for decades. Your Captain Ellis saved the Zorthan delegate through improvisation, while our medical teams consulted protocols. Your adaptation to spacefaring was immediate, without the usual centuries of adjustment. Those sound like compliments, not reasons for fear." "To some of us, yes." Trelek glanced around nervously. "But to the ruling species, unpredictability is dangerous. They prefer slow, controlled progress." When Kevin and Samantha returned to their quarters, they immediately encrypted a message to Earth. "We need to alert Command," Kevin said urgently. "The Confederation isn't welcoming us as equals. They're planning to contain us like some kind of dangerous species." Samantha looked out at the alien city, its strange architecture glowing under twin moons. "We came here hoping to join a galactic community," she said quietly. "Instead, we've discovered we're seen as a threat." Ambassador Lisa Collins sat stiffly in her chair at the Earth Embassy on Centauri Prime. The document on the table before her seemed to glow with an unnatural light. Or perhaps that was just her anger making her vision blur. "They can't be serious," she said, her voice tight with controlled fury. Chief Diplomat Alan Garcia studied her face carefully. Unlike Lisa, who had only been in space for 6 months, Alan had spent 3 years studying alien cultures before the first official contact. "They are very serious," he replied. "The Galactic Confederation has never been more unified on an issue." Lisa picked up the document again. The Humanity Containment Act was printed in both English and the standard galactic script. The restrictions were clear and harsh. All human vessels were restricted to a 20-light-year radius around Earth's sun. No advanced technology could be shared with humans beyond what had already been discussed. Confederation observers would be placed on all human colonies to monitor activities. Any violation would result in immediate sanctions, including possible military intervention. "They're treating us like children," Lisa said, "or prisoners." Alan's expression changed, his eyes showing a spark of something unexpected. Not anger, but interest. "Actually," he said, leaning forward, "they're treating us like they're afraid of us." Lisa looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. The entire Confederation, with hundreds of species and thousands of years of unified history, felt the need to create a special law just for us. Just for humans. Why would they do that unless they saw something in us that truly worried them? Back on Earth, the news of the Containment Act sent shockwaves through governments and the public. Protests erupted in major cities. Military leaders called for a show of force. Some scientists suggested cutting off all contact with alien civilizations. But in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Richard Powell was taking a different approach. "Ladies and gentlemen," he addressed the room filled with Earth's brightest minds, "we've been handed a challenge. Not a war, but a puzzle." The screens behind him displayed the full text of the Containment Act, alongside analyses of Confederation legal structures and cultural practices. "We need to understand not just what this law says, but why it exists, and most importantly, how we can work within it, or around it, without triggering a conflict we cannot win." Dr. Natalie Patel raised her hand, the legal expert who had studied the preliminary documents on Confederation law. She had been one of the first people Powell had recruited. "Admiral, I've been reviewing their legal code. It's complex, but also very literal. There are contradictions between different sections that might give us room to maneuver." Powell nodded. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need." "What else?" A military strategist pointed out that while the act restricted human expansion, it said nothing about commercial activities or information exchange. A cultural anthropologist noted that many smaller Confederation species might be natural allies, as they too had faced restrictions from the dominant powers. "Good," Powell said. "Very good. They expect us to either submit meekly or rebel openly. We'll do neither. Instead, we'll adapt." 3 days later, Powell presented his plan to the Earth Security Council. 5 days after that, the first teams began implementing the strategy that would come to be known as soft expansion. Meanwhile, on Centauri Prime, Alan Garcia had requested a private meeting with a representative of the Navari, a species known for their independence within the Confederation. "The Containment Act is not just about humans," Alan explained to the gray-skinned alien. "It sets a precedent that could affect many species." The Navari representative, its large eyes unblinking, replied, "We faced similar restrictions 800 years ago. Some of those restrictions remain in place." Alan leaned forward. "What if we found a way to change that? Not just for us, but for you as well." For the first time, the Navari showed an expression Alan could recognize. Interest. Back at the Earth Embassy, Lisa Collins watched the sunset over the alien city. The Confederation thought they had contained humanity. They didn't realize they had just issued a challenge. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was overcoming challenges. 8 months after the Containment Act went into effect, Dr. Natalie Patel stood before Admiral Powell and the Earth Security Council. Her eyes showed the fatigue of countless nights studying alien legal texts, but her voice was strong and clear. "We found 3 major loopholes," she said. First, while the Act limits our physical presence to 20 light-years from Sol, it places no restrictions on communications or data exchange. She pressed a button on her tablet, and the large screen behind her displayed a complex diagram of Confederation legal structures. Second, the Act restricts technology sharing from the Confederation to us, but says nothing about trade or purchase of technology. And third, perhaps most importantly, the Act specifies human vessels and human colonies, but does not address joint ventures or partnerships. Admiral Powell nodded with satisfaction. Natalie's legal team had done exactly what he'd hoped, but this was just one part of the larger plan. "Captain Hoffman, your report." Captain Eric Hoffman of the trade vessel *Venture* stood. Unlike military ships, trade vessels were still permitted to dock at Confederation ports, though under heavy surveillance. "In the past 6 months, we've established trade relations with 14 species," Hoffman reported. "Most are middle-tier Confederation members who feel overlooked by the dominant powers. They're eager to trade with us, especially for Earth goods like coffee, chocolate, and our entertainment media." "Entertainment media?" asked one of the council members. "They want our movies. They find our stories fascinating," Hoffman explained, "especially ones about overcoming impossible odds. Apparently, most Confederation species have very predictable storytelling patterns." Powell smiled slightly at the irony. The very unpredictability that made the Confederation fear humans also made their culture attractive. "And the intelligence gathering?" Powell asked. "Continuous and effective," Hoffman replied. "Every trade negotiation reveals more about Confederation politics and technology. We're mapping their alliances and conflicts, finding the pressure points." Next came engineer Maria Rodriguez, who had been working in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. She activated a small silver device on the table. "This," she said with pride, "is what we call a quantum whisper. It allows instantaneous communication that operates on principles the Confederation doesn't monitor because they don't use this technology themselves. They rely on subspace channels, which are faster than light, but not truly instantaneous." 1 year after the Containment Act was put in place, the Earth monitoring station on the edge of the 20-light-year boundary picked up an unusual signal. The technicians worked quickly to decode it, then immediately contacted Admiral Powell. "It's a distress call," the lead technician explained, her voice tense. "From a species called the Talaxians. They're facing some kind of plague. Millions are already sick, and their medical technology can't stop it." Powell frowned. "Where are they located?" 26 light-years beyond our containment boundary. They're new members of the Confederation, joined just 3 months ago." Powell immediately called an emergency meeting with Ambassador Collins, who was back on Earth for consultations, and Dr. Daniel Newman, Earth's leading expert on viral diseases. "The signal indicates this plague attacks the nervous system," Dr. Newman explained, studying the data. "Based on the genetic markers they've sent, it's similar to diseases we've dealt with on Earth. Our recent advances in neural regeneration therapy might be effective." "But the Talaxians are beyond our containment boundary," Ambassador Collins pointed out. "If we send help, we violate the Act and risk Confederation military response." Powell was silent for a moment. "And if we do nothing?" Dr. Newman looked grim. "Based on their transmission, the Talaxians will likely become extinct within 3 months." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled on everyone present. "What about the Confederation?" Collins asked. "Won't they help?" "According to our intelligence," Howell replied, "Confederation medical technology is advanced in many ways, but they've never focused on rapid response to new diseases. Their species rarely experience plagues because they've been spacefaring for so long. Dr. Newman nodded. Their medical approach is preventative, not reactive. They don't have experience fighting unknown pathogens the way we do. Powell tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. Then he activated the secure communication channel to Lieutenant Yang. Lieutenant, are your Nevari contacts trustworthy enough for a sensitive operation? Yang's face appeared on the screen, his expression serious. Absolutely, sir. They've proven themselves repeatedly over the past year. Good. We have a situation that requires their help. Powell explained the plan quickly. They would transmit the medical research to the Nevari, who had no restrictions on their movement. The Nevari would then deliver the cure to the Talaxians. It's still a risk, Collins warned. If the Confederation traces the research back to us, they'll claim we violated the spirit of the Containment Act, if not the letter. Sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks, Powell replied. I'm not willing to let millions die when we can help, law or no law. The transmission to the Nevari was prepared within hours. Dr. Newman worked with his team to adapt their neural regeneration therapy to Talaxian biology based on the limited information they had. The data package was encrypted and sent through Maria Rodriguez's quantum whisper system. For 3 days, they waited anxiously for news. Then the alert came. The Confederation had detected the transmission and traced it back to Earth despite the encryption. They were demanding an emergency session of the Galactic Council, accusing Earth of violating the Containment Act. They're threatening sanctions, Ambassador Collins said, reading the message with alarm. Possibly even military action. Did the cure reach the Talaxians? Powell asked, focusing on what mattered most. Lieutenant Yang nodded. The Nevari confirmed delivery. The Talaxian medical teams are already producing the treatment. Powell stood up, his face resolute. Then we've done what we needed to do. Now we face the consequences. Ambassador Collins looked thoughtful. Maybe this is actually an opportunity. They've called for a public hearing before the full council. That means every species in the Confederation will be watching. What are you thinking? Powell asked. Collins smiled with determination. I'm thinking it's time to put the Containment Act itself on trial. The Confederation wants to judge us. Fine. But they should be prepared to be judged in return. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Confederation was filled to capacity. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in rising tiers around the central speaking platform. The air buzzed with tension and whispered conversations. High Chancellor Zixborn stood at the center, his purple scales now a deeper shade showing his anger. This emergency session will now begin. The matter before us is the clear violation of the Humanity Containment Act by the species known as humans. Ambassador Lisa Collins walked calmly to the speaking platform. 6 months after the Talaxian crisis, the Grand Council chamber looked very different. The once rigid seating arrangement had been reorganized. Smaller species now sat alongside the traditionally dominant powers rather than in the higher, more distant tiers. Ambassador Lisa Collins sat at a circular table with representatives from 12 other species. They were finalizing the revised version of what had once been the Humanity Containment Act. The Integration Initiative, Lisa read from the document before her, shall establish a comprehensive cultural and knowledge exchange program between all willing Confederation members, with human representatives included on all major committees. High Chancellor Zixborn, who had once been humanity's strongest critic, nodded his purple-scaled head. The wording is acceptable to the council majority. The past 6 months had changed the political landscape of the Confederation dramatically. The public broadcast of the emergency hearing had sparked debates across thousands of worlds. Many species had begun questioning traditions and restrictions they had long accepted without challenge. The Talaxians had become humanity's most vocal supporters. Their delegation had traveled throughout Confederation space, sharing stories of how human medical science had saved their civilization. Images of recovering Talaxian children had done more for human diplomacy than any formal arguments could have. Meanwhile, Captain Eric Hoffman's trade network had grown from 14 species to 38. Earth goods, everything from coffee to music to literature, had become highly valued across the galaxy. Economic reality had forced even reluctant species to reconsider their position on human containment. "There is one final matter," Zix Forn said, drawing Lisa's attention back to the present. "The Council has approved human representatives for the Military Strategic Committee, the Scientific Exchange Board, and the Cultural Preservation Trust. However, we have an unusual request." Lisa raised an eyebrow, cautious but curious. "The Legal Reform Committee has specifically requested Dr. Natalie Patul as Earth's representative," Zix Forn continued. "Her analysis of the contradictions in our legal code has been illuminating." Lisa smiled. Natalie's brilliant legal mind had found so many loopholes in Confederation law that the ruling species had decided it was better to have her helping fix the system rather than finding ways around it. After the meeting, Lisa walked through the gardens of the Confederation headquarters with Alan Garcia. "Did you ever expect this outcome?" she asked, "when they first handed us that containment document." Ellen looked up at the alien sky, thinking, "I hoped, but no, I didn't expect things to change so quickly. Humans adapt fast, but most Confederation species think in terms of centuries, not months." "The Talaxian crisis changed everything," Lisa said. "It forced them to see us not just as a potential threat, but as potential allies." Ellen nodded. "And Engineer Rodriguez's communication technology is now being adapted for official Confederation use. They're calling it the most significant advancement in galactic communications in 300 years. As they walked, they passed a group of alien diplomats being guided by Lieutenant Peter Yang. He had become the unofficial cultural interpreter between humans and the dozens of species now eager to establish closer relations with Earth. "The Neveri representative told me something interesting yesterday," Lisa said. "Apparently, there's a new term being used in Confederation diplomatic circles: the human approach." "What does it mean?" Ellen asked. "It means solving problems by looking at them from unexpected angles, finding solutions that don't fit the traditional patterns." Lisa smiled. "They're actually studying our history, trying to understand how we developed this way." Ellen laughed softly. "So the very unpredictability they feared is now something they want to learn from." "Exactly. And here's the irony. The Confederation has existed for thousands of years, but many species are saying it's felt more alive, more dynamic in the past year than in the previous century." They reached a viewing platform overlooking the vast alien city. Construction was underway on a new section. The Earth Embassy was being expanded to accommodate the growing number of human representatives and the many alien visitors seeking consultation. "A law meant to contain us," Lisa said quietly, "instead unleashed us throughout the galaxy." Ellen nodded. "Because they fundamentally misunderstood something about humans." "What's that?" "Limitations don't restrict us," Ellen replied. "They challenge us." 5 years after first contact, Admiral Richard Powell stood before the Grand Council of the Galactic Confederation. His once dark hair now showed streaks of gray, evidence of the challenging years that had transformed humanity's place in the galaxy. As Earth's senior representative, he was present for a historic vote. "Representatives of the Confederation," announced the new council leader, a Talaxian named Vorlex who had survived the plague thanks to human medical science. "We will now vote on Proposal 7293, officially recognizing the Humanity Clause as a beneficial addition to Confederation law." Powell smiled slightly at the name. What had once been shorthand for containment had evolved into something entirely different. The new Humanity Clause no longer restricted human movement or influence. Instead, it required that all major Confederation decisions include human consultation, acknowledging the unique perspective humanity brought to galactic affairs. The voting proceeded quickly. Of the 312 species represented, 297 voted in favor. Even most of the original supporters of containment had changed their position after seeing the benefits of human involvement. The proposal is accepted, Vorlex announced. The Humanity Clause is now official Confederation law. From the observation gallery, Ambassador Lisa Collins and Chief Diplomat Alan Garcia watched the proceedings. After years of work, it was a moment of quiet triumph. "Remember when they thought we needed to be contained?" Lisa asked softly. Alan nodded. "And now they've made our involvement a requirement." The Earth Embassy on Centauri Prime had grown from a small diplomatic outpost to a sprawling complex that served as a hub for interspecies cooperation. The gardens where Lisa and Alan now walked featured plants from dozens of worlds, a living symbol of the integration that had replaced containment. "Commander Ellis arrives tomorrow," Lisa said, referring to the man whose actions at first contact had unintentionally sparked the whole containment effort. "With his wife, I hear," Alan replied. "Olivia Martinez is now Director of Interspecies Communications, isn't she?" Lisa nodded. "They're both in high demand as consultants. Everyone wants to understand the human perspective these days." In one corner of the garden, they observed an unusual gathering. Representatives from at least 12 different species were engaged in animated conversation with human cultural experts. The aliens were learning about Earth concepts like jazz music, abstract art, and improvisational theater, creative forms that many Confederation species found both bewildering and fascinating. "Dr. Patel's legal reforms are being implemented next month," Alan said. "She's completely restructured how the Confederation handles disputes between species. And Rodriguez's communication technology has connected worlds that were previously isolated." Lisa added, "The Confederation is more unified now than it was before we arrived, just not in the rigid way they expected." A young alien approached them, a member of a newly discovered species that had just been invited to join the Confederation. The being had an iridescent skin that shifted colors as it moved. "Ambassadors," the young diplomat said through a translator, "I am honored to meet you. I am Trelvac, first representative of the Luminary. Welcome to the Confederation." Lisa replied warmly, "How may we assist you?" "My people are preparing to join the galactic community," Trelvac explained. "The Council suggested we consult with humans first." "Oh, and what do you hope to learn from us?" Alan asked. The young diplomat's skin rippled with colors that suggested excitement or anticipation. "We wish to understand how your species turned chains into keys," Trelvac replied. "The story of how a law meant to contain you instead became the foundation of your influence is taught to all new diplomats now. We hope to learn your perspective on change and adaptation." Lisa smiled and gestured to a nearby bench. It began with a simple principle that humans have always understood. Restrictions are often just challenges in disguise. As they sat together under the light of alien stars, Lisa began to explain humanity's oldest and most powerful trait, the ability to transform limitations into opportunities. In a quiet office in the Confederation archives, a historian was updating the official records. Under the entry for Humanity Containment Act, now rested a simple annotation: "C. Galactic Renaissance, beginning of."